Welcome back to CrowsNest. In today's video, we will be reading BFRO reports from Arkansas. All of these reports in their entirety can be found on the BFRO website. It was January of 2003 in Baxter County, Arkansas, between 2 to 3 a.m. It was a cold and clear winter night. We were coming home from fishing, and as we rounded a curve, an animal walking upright came into clear view. My buddy who was with me and I said not a word to one another. We were now maybe at 20 miles per hour as we watched this big critter who was standing upright take one step and went from the far side of the shoulder to the center line, where he paused for a moment and looked us up and down. Although we felt no fear from this creature, we felt like it looked at each one of us. Then he leaned forward and put his knuckles on the pavement and swung his hips through his arms and was now on the far side of the east shoulder. And then it was just gone. My encounter happened in June of 2006, around 4 to 5 p.m. My then 7-year-old son and I were driving in my truck one afternoon to go feed our horses, which we kept at my cousin's home, who lived about 25 miles outside of town. We had decided to take a shortcut and get off the paved country road and turn onto a small gravel road that ran beside a railroad track for about 10 miles. There is a large frozen food warehouse on the corner of the county road and then the gravel road, but nothing else around. After we had passed the warehouse is when the creature leapt across the road in front of my truck. Happened very quickly. It cleared the road entirely in one leap and never touched the gravel road. It came from my right to my left, and I nearly hit the creature with my truck before I could stop. I came within approximately 2 feet of it with the front of my vehicle. As I said before, it was mid-air when I first saw it. The creature appeared to be around 4 feet in height, maybe slightly taller, and was covered in reddish-brown hair all over that was about 4 to 6 inches in length. It was hair, not fur, because it was thin and flowing in the wind, unlike what fur would do. The creature was lean and yet somewhat muscular, and its arms seemed to be disproportionately long for its size. If I had to compare it to something, I would have to say it looked similar to an orangutan. But I'm sure there were no orangutans on the loose that day in eastern Arkansas. I'm not sure what it was, but I am certain of what it was not. It was not a dog, coyote, deer, bear, or anything else that I've seen before except for some sort of ape. When the creature landed across the road, there was some very tall grass for several feet, and beyond that, the train tracks, and beyond that, thousands of acres of farmland, with several patches of woods everywhere. When it hit the ground, it took one step into the grass, and then the creature just seemed to disappear. I stopped my vehicle and waited for a few minutes in hopes of seeing it again, but we never did. And just like that, it was gone. It disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. For years now, I've often thought about that incident and just exactly what it was that we saw that afternoon. I believe that it was a young Sasquatch and that it had been dumpster diving behind that frozen food warehouse, though I can't be certain. I've often wondered if there was an adult one nearby that we never saw. Because of that, I am really glad that I didn't get out of the car and pursue it, which had crossed my mind to do at the time. Well, that's my story, and you can choose to believe me or not. It makes no difference to me. But I know what I saw, and I can tell you that it's real. There is really some unknown bipedal creature or ape or whatever out there, and we were just lucky enough to see one. This occurred when I was a small kid growing up on a farm. On this day, my mom had bought me a big red ball. I took the ball outside while my mom and 2 older brothers were in the house finishing up chores. I'm kicking the ball around and wind up in the backyard with it. I kicked the ball really hard and it rolled to a small thicket behind the house and stopped at the fence. I ran after it, bent down to pick it up, and when I had the ball in my hands, I heard something above me. I looked up and there was this huge monster, as I described it at the time. It had huge hands on the fence, bending over the fence looking at me. It wasn't very far from my face and looked me right in the eyes. I was starting to scream, but it took me a minute because I was frozen. It looked at me like it was studying me, and when I started to scream, it also opened its mouth at me, and its human-like eyes were darting around looking back at my house. I kept screaming, and I was running backward away from it while I was screaming bloody murder. I saw it up close and very personal. I felt at the time it wanted to take me. Not sure if it wanted me for food or as a pet. As I was running backwards from it, it kept looking at my house and then decided to run from me. By this time, I was up against my house screaming with my nails dug into the house. My mom came running from the front of the house and my brothers came from the other side of the house. They were asking me, "What's wrong? What happened?" My mom thought I was hurt. She was looking for blood. My brothers and mom were asking me questions, but I never took my eyes off where I last saw it. My mom and brothers finally got me calmed down enough to tell them about the monster I saw. At first, my mom didn't know what to think. She got herself scared. My two brothers were scared out of their wits when I told them and my mom. My brothers started telling my mom that when they go fishing in the thicket pond, there would be rocks thrown into the water, and they were blaming each other at first. Then they thought my dad was messing with them, but he'd be at work during that time. My brothers were very shaken at me seeing this monster. Looking back now at this, it just makes me wonder if it had been watching us for quite some time, just waiting. After I told my brothers of this experience, they did not go back to the pond by themselves. The monster's waist was well over the barbed wire fence where the top wire came midway to the top of a quarter horse's back. It had human-type eyes. You could tell it was very smart because when I started screaming, it immediately looked right at my house for other humans and got nervous and left. It had long orangutan-colored hair all over it. The hands looked like a gorilla, but it had a full thumb like a human and not the nub like a gorilla. It had hazel, yellowish eyes. Its face was covered with leathery-looking skin with some hair. Long arms that were very muscular. It walked and ran on two legs. It smelled like an unkempt wet dog mixed with the skunk and goat smell. Many years later, when visiting a zoo, I smelled the primate section and knew that this was the same smell. As a child, I suffered trauma from experiencing this. I wish I would have never seen it. I used to tell people about it until I got to my mid-20s and got made fun of for seeing an imaginary creature. It wasn't until I was 12 or 13 that I came across a Bigfoot movie. Then I knew I saw a Bigfoot that day. It's permanently in my mind. I will never be able to forget that day. This was 1978. There was no internet. We didn't watch a lot of TV then either. I know what I saw, and it wasn't my imagination. I was coon hunting with some buddies and we had split up to go grab our dogs that had gone separate ways out in the bayou. I could just barely hear their dogs barking in the distance. After leashing my own dogs, I heard something walking in the flooded timber and swamp. I called out to them thinking it must have been one of my hunting companions, but to my dismay no one answered. Instead, all I heard was a deep-throated gurgling growl and the awfulest putrid smell. The smell was like a wild hog. I also heard a whining kind of whistling sound. My dogs were whimpering. Now these weren't just any dogs. They could rip a 20-pound raccoon or a full-grown coyote apart. Yet they were cowardly crouched behind my legs whimpering. I couldn't understand it. After a few minutes of walking, I heard the sound of someone or something walking in the water again. So I stopped and turned around, and standing right behind me was a creature of immense size. He must have been at least 8 or 9 feet tall. He was covered from head to toe with real dark hair, and when my light hit his eyes, its eyes glowed like a deer in the spotlight. I was scared. I don't ever remember being that scared before or since. He made a hissing sound and reached down and took his hand and started scooping water and throwing it up at me and making a deep throaty noise. My dogs started chomping at the leash and growling, trying to get at it, having regained their bravery. I hauled the leash and tore out across that swamp, so scared that for a while I went in the wrong direction. I got to a big cypress and caught my breath. I could hear the thing behind me. It sounded like it was about 100 yards or so back. It followed me for a ways, and then after a while I could hear it across the bayou making a moaning sound and moving away slowly. I got my compass and my bearings and I started back to the truck. When I got there, I didn't say a word to my friends about what I had saw for fear they would laugh me down. I was visiting some friends in the summer of 1988. We all decided to go to a local lake for some bass fishing. They had warned me that there were tons of water moccasins and to be careful where I stepped. I was moving along the bank fishing and I was paying a lot of attention to where I was placing my feet, when all of a sudden there was a commotion in the woods about 15 feet to the right of me. When I turned and looked, I could see a very large creature. about 7 to 8 feet tall with very broad shoulders, and I could hear a sort of whoop, whoop noise. It grabbed the tree trunk next to it and just twisted it off, and kind of slapped the ground with it. It made a very low, guttural growl with its mouth in an O shape. At that point, I was more scared than I have ever been in my life. It was really intimidating because its muscles were flexed and its head was tilted down, yet it was staring right at me. My dad had taught me about encounters with bears and what to do. My instinct was to run, but my dad always taught me that an animal will chase you if you run. So I just looked down at the ground and slowly backed away. The animal followed me a short way and then just turned and walked into the woods. When I got back to where my friends were, I told them what happened and they just laughed at me. If you have your own experience or sighting from Arkansas, be sure to leave it in the comments below, and we'll see you next time at the Crow's Nest.